Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of Money Means Business. Today we are going to focus on the new industrial strategy, on the efforts exerted by the state to encourage investors. Investors here, I mean local, Arab and foreign investors. And particularly the package of incentives which was decided by the president to encourage those investors to invade new markets, new fields, new horizons, and to implement on the ground this strategic partnership between the public and private sector, all for the best interest of the Egyptian people for our economy. But before we start, let us have a quick look at our stock market, the Egyptian bourse, and the achievements which were achieved recently. Is it for our best interest to know that we exceeded 18,000 points? The answer is yes. Let's watch, and then we are going to turn back with more, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's start immediately. But before we start, let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Professor Dr. Kholy, Professor of Economics and the former Dean of the Faculty of Commerce at Ain Shams University. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
And let's start with the new industrial strategy. As we mentioned in our intro, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi instructed the cabinet to implement a fresh package of incentives to support industrial activity and accelerate localization. And the package including first 5-year exemption from all taxes, excluding the VAT, of course, and if the new industrial projects begin operating within 3 years. Before going into the details, how do you say the states or the political leadership keenness to continue with giving all the time more incentives for the new investors, new entrepreneurs, and those who want to start in this field, localizing industry?
When we talk about localizing industry, it's a very important issue to really look for the map of Egypt, which we have a lot of area which is filled with a lot of raw materials, our materials. When we talk about industry, we talk about the component of industry. Industry, it means technology. And when we talk about technology, we talk about the fourth revolution technology, which include artificial intelligence, 3D printing, Internet of Things, and so on. And the other item, which is labor, which we have in Egypt, our labor force is high. They have a high level of skills. They have the lowest wage rate all over the world in Egypt. The third part, which is materials. And I believe the future, it goes how to manage our materials. We have a lot of materials. We used to import our, we export our raw materials, especially in the last 3-4 years. We start to really, instead of
exporting our raw materials, to use them or to focus on the production components to be totally
Absolutely.
local.
That is the three major dimensions of any industry. In order to attract foreign direct investment or local investment into industry, we have to really see the infrastructure. We have logistic infrastructure in the best level in Egypt right now. When we talk about roads, tunnels, bridges, and so on, we have a very, very highly
developed infrastructure.
Developed infrastructure. Also, we have the power supply for industry, and we have all the means, whether by sea, by air, by land. That is the transportation.
Even dry port. The cabinet statement added that the projects which are going to enjoy this tax exemption should involve strategic industries that target localization. This is also another side of the coin, to seek or to try to study how to boost or to enhance the localization of strategic industries. This is, I think, a plan, a short-term plan and a long-term plan, and all for the best interest of our industrial field in general, if you agree with me on that.
Absolutely, I agree. Remember, when we talk about industry, we have mega project industry, which is the long term. The short term, we should really look for the feeding industry. Feeding industry, it means hundreds or thousands of a small business can contribute to the mega industry or big project. And when you have a strategy, when you talk about strategy, President Sisi have a vision. Vision, it simply means not today or tomorrow, in the long run. So his vision, it is ahead of time what Egypt it will be in terms of utilizing our local materials, our raw materials, and really build industrial base in the future. And I told you in your program several times, I believe in the very near future, Egypt, it will be the hub for as industrial base for Africa and the Middle East and so on. We have a lot of international projects going on right now. For example, the Russian investment in the
industrial zone in the new Suez Canal.
In Suez Canal.
And the Chinese one too, inshallah.
And Chinese and many other international company, they already came to Egypt to heavily invest in a mega industry. Of course, when we talk about this, we talk about reducing the unemployment rate, reducing the inflation rate. It increases the quality of life of our workforce.
And to qualify our youth cadres to have their own projects after that. To continue with the incentives or the package of incentives, President Sisi directed the cabinet to expand the scope of golden licenses to include all projects that deepen localization of industry.
Remember, what we talk about the major factor of industry, but the missing link, it was the process, the procedures. And when President Sisi issued the gold license, it means you can come and have an idea, you have a project, we'll have the ability to finance you, to give you ore facility, to give you a tax reduction, and also it will give you the speed of issuing your license in a very short period of time. Instead of taking months and years in order to get your license, you take it within a week or two, up to 1 month. That is, we have to change the process. We have to reduce or eliminate the red tape which the startup business or local business or foreign direct investment to establish their business. I believe the golden license, it is a key issue in order to enhance our industrial base and our industrial strategy at the same time.
And in many occasions, the President is keen to stress the importance of the strategic partnership between the public and private sector.
Absolutely.
And here, it's not only about the national mega projects, which also involve the private sector, but also it's the, let's say, SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and to take into consideration that the country is going through the two tracks in the very same time. How also do you see this? Because when we talk about national mega projects, we also talk about the small and medium projects with the very same keenness to implement them on the ground with the same efficiency.
And that is the new project, which is startup, that's EBDA and so on, which is the provide the small investor and small business with the feasibility study, with the kind of project you should work on it and so on. Remember, the government itself, they cannot do it by itself. The private sector, they cannot do it by itself. So we have to have a cooperation or between the private and public sector in order to increase the space and the size of small and intermediate business in Egypt. Most of the developed countries, like in the States, in Russia, in Europe, and so on, will consider, they consider 80% from industrial base, it will go to small and intermediate kind of business. So building a strategy for that, and we should really focus on how to manage our materials.
Yes.
That is the key issue in order to implement.
And this is exactly what was said by the
strategy.
President. Let's quote him. President Sisi emphasized the need for a very ambitious plan for the industrial sector to reduce foreign currency expenditure on imported goods by producing domestic substitutes. Sir, here also the foreign currency is an issue. And it's an issue which was really troubling our economy and the whole world, because the whole world is really suffering with the very negative impact of before the COVID-19 and now for a whole year, almost 1.5 years now, the Russian-Ukrainian struggle or dispute or fighting, you name it, and with the supply chain crisis, with the food security crisis, with the energy crisis, to take this into consideration in every step and to be that transparent in front of the world and of our people. How do you see this also as something we repeat to know why we are doing so, why these steps are taking on the ground?
Remember the devaluation of Egyptian currency. Remember, most of the people, when we talk about two things which play very important role, the dollar and the gold. When that's economy.
Yes.
So when the public start to trade on Facebook and in social media, buy and sell dollar and gold, that is a disaster. So we have to build a policy, a monetary policy, and I believe Dr. Hassan Abdallah is playing a very important role.
The ECB governor, the governor of the Egyptian Central Bank.
Yeah, in order to control this kind of behavior, because when you transfer this behavior into economics, it's a bad sign, not a good sign. So in order to do that, we have to build a good and a strong monetary policy in order to really give advantage for the Egyptian pound to start to take this strength again.
I mentioned this, sir, because this is going to take us to one of the many benefits Egypt is going to gain with joining BRICS. Of course, we all know that, inshallah, starting January 2024, Egypt is going officially to be a member of the BRICS. And to have this kind of trade deals among the member states of BRICS in local currencies, this is going to be a step forward for the best interest of all. If you want to elaborate on that.
It's not going to be a BRICS anymore when Egypt and United Arab Emirates
it's
and
named
Saudi Arabia.
BRICS because of the
it will be
five,
G11 or
yeah,
G12 or
we are
whatever.
going to know.
Because BRICS, it is a abbreviation for only 5 countries. But when you have 19 or 20 countries in the very near future, in a few months, it will change its name. Of course, when you trade between partners, and we call it as in international business, we call it as a most favorable nation. So when you have a group of 20 countries, which we consider as most favorable country, the ease of trade between these countries, it will give advantage for each one of these countries. But remember, again and again, and I stress on that, joining BRICS, for example, or any other group, we have to really focus on 2 major things. Is to be able to compete with quality, we have to produce more, and we have to be productive in order to be a strong player in any group, whether it's a BRICS or any other group. So the main issue here, we should focus on...
So number 1, competitiveness.
Absolutely.
Number 2?
Number 2, it is productivity, and we have to be serious in producing more and more. Not in a consuming good, but in industrial goods and so on. And that is the key issue, which all the cooperation, whether we talk about Russia, we talk about China, in the Suez Canal area, economical area, it is built for industrial base, for industry, not for consuming industry.
The government is also planning to issue 6 steel production licenses to major foreign investors in 2024, meaning in few months from now. Steel industry, one of the heavy industries,
Absolutely.
which is very crucial and vital for all other industries, and to know that 6 major or high-profile foreign investors are going to come and to invest in this field in specific, in this industrial sector in specific, I think it means a lot, and it's sending a message to the whole world that they found the favorable hub of industry here, and in an industry like that. If you want to comment also.
Of course, when we talk about steel industry, it is a labor incentive industry, and labor incentive industry, it means in the short term, not in the long term, it will reduce our unemployment rate and will increase the quality of life for millions of Egyptians when we bring this, as you mentioned, 6 steel industry. That is a very important issue, but we have to really focus in training and vocational training in order to upgrade the skills of our labor force. Remember, 5 years ago, President Sisi, he said, 2018, it is a year of quality. So instead of just producing goods and service, we have to look for a high quality product and service. Not only that, but we also need to be able to how to market our product and service abroad, not only in the local market, but for the global market, and that is competitiveness.
Amen to that. Sir, and to continue with what we have started talking about regarding the efforts exerted by the state to encourage and to attract more investors, Hussam Heba, the CEO of Egypt General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, had a statement during a speech at the Business and Investment Forum organized by the Egyptian Embassy in Beijing, in China, when he said that Egypt secured the top spot in Africa in terms of the value of incoming foreign direct investments in 2022, highlighting the various investment incentives that Egypt offers to foreign companies with particular focus on key industries such as automotive, home appliances, energy production, and green hydrogen. This is in Beijing, there. Knocking the door campaigns, or taking into consideration that we should have a little bit a kind of marketing for our investment environment. And here the one or part of this campaign is himself the CEO of Egypt General Authority for Investment and Free Zones.
It is known and it's published even before Beijing. The most of the investment, Egypt is number one. South Africa is number two. Remember, Egypt, it has it's a God blessing, which is the location of Egypt. We are considered to be in the Middle East. We consider to be an African. We part of Egypt in Sinai. It's part of Asia, and we are close to, for example, Africa.
African, Arab, Islamic, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern,
and European
you name
country. And of course, with the, as you mentioned, with what's happened with the COVID-19 and with Russian-Ukrainian war and so on, it became the supply chain weakened, and with this kind of weakness of supply chain, it gave Egypt the opportunity to be the hub for many industry, as you mentioned, steel industry, pharmaceutical industry, petrochemical industry. We can be the hub for industrial in Egypt because of our location.
Also, Heba emphasized the benefits provided by Egypt special and free economic zones, which aim to stimulate exports through tax exemptions. And also, a report by the American global management consulting firm ranked Egypt 14th among the world's top attractive and trusted, and would you please underline the word trusted, emerging markets for foreign investments, ahead of Turkey, Morocco, South Africa, and even Russia. How do you see this ranking, sir? Is it, we are very ambitious, but is it good at least for the moment, or it's only a first step in a long journey?
Remember, during COVID-19, even during the Russian-Ukrainian war, we still, our growth rate is the positive side. And that is an indicator for the stability of Egypt in terms of political stability, in terms of safety or security stability in Egypt. Egypt also, it have a very good market for foreign direct investment to come to Egypt. We have 100 plus million Egyptian, and we have low labor cost, we have allocation, we have raw materials, and it really, this is considered to be an attraction for attracting more and more foreign direct investment. But we have, as you mentioned in the beginning of this program, we have to have industrial strategy. Industrial strategy, it means for all different government in Egypt, they have to give us a map for industrial, for investment opportunity in each government in Egypt. Remember, in many industrial area, like Rubeiki, for example.
Rubeiki for leather, Damietta for furniture,
and many other
العين السخنة for silicon, or
absolutely. Kafr Sheikh for black sand and so on.
You name it. Yes, Kafr Sheikh for silicon, and العين السخنة for phosphate or fertilizers.
Yes. And also Sadat City, which is considered to be a very
scattered
good
all over
industry
Egypt, by
and
the way.
so on.
Yes.
So my idea is to really see what opportunity we have, and we should really focus on that in every government in Egypt, and based on that strategy, we can attract the foreign direct investment to transfer technology, and that is what we call it as a win-win strategy. We win, other partner win. When I'm talking about investment, I'm talking about foreign direct investment. I'm talking about local investor here in Egypt and many in other Arab states and so on. And the cooperation between public sector and private sector is very important, and we have to give them the incentive. You talked about tax incentive for
tax
several years.
exemption,
and so on. That is a good news.
Also, it can be extended for other 5 years. The land itself, you name it, and we do have a lot of incentives, and they are all going to be directed to those serious people who want to or who are really exerting the utmost efforts to build a new future for them and for the country, because this is the win-win situation I'm all the time talking about. But sir, since you mentioned competitiveness and productivity, if you permit me, I'd like to add innovation.
Absolutely.
Thinking out of the box.
Absolutely.
Invading new horizons or new fields or whatever. I mean, for example, only today, His Excellency Minister of Electricity, Dr. Muhammad Shakir al-Marqabi, said there is going to be this higher council for green hydrogen, because the future of energy, it's a green hydrogen. In addition to our successes in oil and gas fields, for example, we also are going through the two tracks at one time, coinciding together, parallel together. How do you see this to turn Egypt into a hub for renewable energy in addition to gas exploration, what's called liquid gas, liquefaction of gas? I don't know how to say it. But anyways, to have both together.
We're working in all different means in terms of power supply. We have wind electricity. We
liquid
have
natural gas. Yes.
Liquid natural gas. Yes. And we have solar energy. We have the green hydrogen, which we have a good agreement with one European country. Started already, and many investors signed the agreement already when it comes to renewable energy. I believe we should talk about the most important thing. If we talk about strategy, if we talk about the future of Egypt, it should be in the higher level. Higher level, it means at the president level for this strategy to be implemented in the right way. Remember, when you talk about different level with different procedures and so on, I believe President Sisi will be able to issue a committee or whatever for how to enhance our industrial system through innovation, through creativity, to think out of the box. And that is built on youth, where about 60% of our population, it's a youth population. And we cannot do that unless we really revisit our educational system, revisit our vocational education, revisit our new technological institute in order to provide the state of the art in terms of education, in terms of technology. That is a very essential, and it has to be in the higher level in Egypt.
Sir, since you mentioned our God-blessed location and how we are really in the middle of the whole world, and we are an Arab, Mediterranean, African, Islamic, Middle East nation, Egypt aims to increase portfolio with Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank to $40 billion US. This is going to Asia. Egypt is looking forward to expand the cooperation portfolio with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB, to $40 billion US, covering 220 projects, according to Minister of Finance, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Ma'it. Egypt, a founding member of the AIIB, aims to draw soft financing options for the Egyptian private sector in private development fields, including renewable energy, sustainable transportation, telecommunication, internet, water, and green projects. All this with an Asian bank. How do you see going also to Asia to diversify our investment resources?
That is a portfolio. When President Sisi came to power, he's not leaning to one side against another side. He's working with all different directions. And if you recall, in the last 8 years for the presidency of President Sisi, he goes to the east and west, he goes to Asia, he goes to the States, he goes to Africa. Remember, In every period of Egypt in the last 30 years, we ignored Africa, we ignored certain part against certain part. But the policy of President Sisi is working with all different people for the sake, for the advances of Egypt. And all of that, when you talk about industry, the return on investment doesn't come overnight. It takes a cycle, a period of time, which we consider at 3 to 5 years to see the fruits of this strategy. So doing agreement, whether with the East or West, that is the policy and that is the direction of President Sisi. It doesn't depend on one side against another side.
Because, sir, people or some people were that much worried, if I may say so, with joining Brics, for example. Is this going to spoil our relations with our allies in the West or stuff like that? President Sisi said it, and he answered this question that frank. He said that we as Egypt have a very balanced way to deal with the world, with the East and the West. And we said it this way: do not put us into your struggles or your disputes. If we are going to join the BRICS, and if there are other economic groups which are going to benefit us, if we join them, we will join them.
Absolutely.
So this is the balance we have. We cannot separate politics from economy. And when we do have this balance in politics, we will have this balance on economy. True?
Absolutely. We have to build a partnership, not only with one side or another side, but all side where we have an opportunity to join. It is not only for the sake of joining group and so on. Do we have a benefit from joining this group? I read an article today in The Economist, which is September 2nd today, about India, for example. India start to be the 5th country in the whole world to go to the moon after the States and China and Russia. India now it started to have a station in the moon right now, and that is, I read it today in The Economist. Remember, with dealing with this kind of environment, with technological environment, exchange between them and us, it will build our knowledge base to a higher level, not to the lower level. So when you're dealing with when you join certain group, for example, you will be able to upgrade your knowledge. You are going to upgrade your skills. You are going to upgrade your educational base in order to match this group. And that is very important.
Amen. Egypt is set to represent Africa at the 8th annual meeting of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which will convene in Africa for the first time on the 25th and 26th of September. Where? In Sharm el-Sheikh.
Absolutely.
So we are going to represent Africa. We are going to enhance or to boost our share with this Asian Bank in infrastructure. And these were the statements released by our Minister of Finance. Sir, how do you see that?
Last year we hosted COP27, which is the most important event worldwide, and we'll be able to host more and more and more. That is it gives you an indication. Egypt is a very stable and secure country. Egypt is a safe haven for investment. The return on investment in Egypt is higher than the return on investment in any other country, whether Arab country, whether it's European country, even whether it's American investment. So the return on investment in Egypt is higher than any other country in the world. And that is opportunity to attract more and more. But remember, with golden license, that is the key. With other things which we already established in the last few years, it's a plus side for Egypt. And in the near future, our currency, it will be strong. Our deficit rate, it will go down. And also, but the key word here, we have to work and produce more and more. And we have to look seriously. And that's in the upper level. I believe presidency should be responsible on that strategy himself, because President Sisi, the sky is not the limit for him.
Yes.
His really vision, it goes up and up. not for himself, but for the whole nation, for all Egyptians. So we have to put hand on hand with this, with our president. We should be able to work hard and hard and hard. We have to produce more in agriculture, in industry, in education, in healthcare, and so on, in order to make Egypt is in a better place. So keep hope alive, and we'll be in a different place in a very near future.
One of the favorite things I do here in this program, Money Means Business, is to speak in numbers. Egypt has secured $2.1 billion in concessional financing to the private sector from international partners since the start only of 2023. This is also a statement released by the Ministry of Finance. And as you've kindly mentioned, the sky is not the limit. How do you see this number? $2.1 billion financing to the private sector from international partners in only 8 months. $2.1 billion.
$2.1 billion.
Yes.
With B, not M. Billion dollar.
Billion.
Billion dollar.
Billion
That's a
dollars.
good news. But we need more and more. You know, I have no limit myself, so we have to attract more and more investment in a private sector for startup business and so on. We
Amen
have
to that.
youth with a lot of opportunity, with a lot of idea, and we really will be in a different place in a near future.
Yeah.
But if we, as I mentioned, work hard, not only the government, public sector and private sector, we have to join hand on hand in order to make our countries is better, and also reduce all the sources of delaying a new project and so on.
No, no more bureaucracy.
Absolutely.
I think this is, we consider, now Egypt considers bureaucracy as a part of corruption. To have this bureaucracy, meaning that there's something wrong, something corrupt here. So fighting corruption is part and parcel of fighting bureaucracy and vice versa.
Absolutely.
Sir, since we are speaking about all this all together, I cannot miss speaking about Decent Life Initiative too. Because we are speaking about mega projects, national mega projects, partnership with the private sector, SMEs, international foreign investors, but in the same time taking care of the low brackets, more than 50 million Egyptians with Decent Life Initiative. I think this is also another message. We do not, the state is not at all missing or do not think that much and that close to how we can, the state can help the low income brackets. Yes.
Remember, we have a lot of initiative, and it's issued by President Sisi himself.
Yeah.
Remember, 100 million healthy people. We have now no virus C, for example, we eliminated for all Egyptians. That is a part of it. With Decent Life Initiative, for example, it is a model now in the United Nations.
Yes.
Which is considered to be the most social responsibility project in the whole world. And
to service 55 million
many
people.
other countries, they start to learn from Decent Life Initiative here, Haya Karima, in Egypt. And many other initiatives, for example, startup, for example, that is another initiative to help the needy people to start their own business and so on, whether they are supplying them, giving them some sort of money and so on. Remember, the way President Sisi think, he moved from welfare to workfare. Welfare, it means you give them some subsidies, some food and so on to keep their life going. And now we are talking about not welfare, but workfare. We give you a loan and you start up your business, you make money, you can depend on yourself and so on. So subsidy is not any more in his mind, but to help people to be able to produce and so on. And that is a very important issue.
Empowering women, empowering
Absolutely.
the youth, and this is also something which is
And
all
special
the time
needs
considered. Of course, people with determination, those are of the first priorities
Absolutely.
of the state. Tomorrow is a better day, and
Absolutely.
inshallah, all the steps taken now are going to be achieved on the ground. They are going to turn into a process going on, not only dreams. And as you mentioned, the sky is not the limit.
And keep hope alive.
Amen to that. Well, sir, I enjoyed our discussion as
Same
usual.
here.
We were very much delighted to have with us Dr. Said Al-Kholy, former Dean of Faculty of Commerce at Shams University. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
And to whom it may concern, for all those who thought that we are not going to maintain our balanced relations with other countries after joining this or doing that, simply Bright Star military exercise, the joint Egyptian-American military drills started 2 days ago, and they are going to continue here in Egypt with the participation of more than 8,000 combatants and fighters from 34 countries here in Egypt, in Mohammed Naguib military base in our west. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received a very big U.S. congressional delegation only a few days ago to maintain, to study and to discuss ways of boosting our mutual strategic relations. Well, this is Egypt, and it's our destiny to be a pivotal a pivotal player, and having this big role in not only regionally but internationally. This is Egypt. Well, we are going to take a quick look at Egypt's joining the Brics in the coming few minutes before we say goodbye. And by this we come to the end of this special episode of Money Means Business. Till we meet again same time on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman.